Welcome back to the Big Blue Breakdown. This is the three key matchups edition for the New York Giants home game on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm Paul Dottino. Well, we know the Giants will be going for their third straight home victory. Yes, it's been a very disappointing season at 2-6 thus far, but since Jaxson Dart has been inserted into the lineup as their starting quarterback, the Giants are doing a really fine job at home. We will see if they can continue that this week. He will not have fellow rookie Cam Skattebo in the backfield, the result of a dislocated ankle suffered in Philadelphia last weekend. And that means Skattebo, who had surgery, is going to be lost for the season. So whether or not Dart can continue to energize the home crowd and give the Giants somewhat of a home field advantage remains to be seen. He does not have his partner with him. But what he does have is hopefully the resurgence of second-year running back Tyrone Tracy. Tracy ran for over 800 yards for the Giants last season, despite being on the bench behind Devin Singletary during the first third of the year. Once Tracy came into the starting lineup, he became a rather electrified player. He's got more long speed and can break a much quicker and longer touchdown run than Cam Skattebo can, but he does not supply the electricity and the juice and the emotional boost that the rookie from Arizona State had given the Giants earlier this year. But before Skattebo was drafted in April, I think everybody was comfortable with the fact that Tracy easily could be, in his second year, the guy who maintains the starting job and becomes the lead back in the backfield. So I don't think there's anything to sneeze at now that Tracy has been reinserted into the starting lineup. In fact, he gives the Giants a little bit of a different dynamic, and I think he's going to do just fine, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, before we go any further and discuss the San Francisco 49ers and their heavily injury-riddled lineup, let's discuss some of the injuries that the Giants have had to deal with over the course of the past week. Going into this game, the Giants will be heading out to the practice field on Friday morning, and they're kind of banged up themselves in the secondary. Starting corners Paul Dottino and Cordell Flott, to this point, have not practiced. Adebo, we know, has the injured knee, missed the Philadelphia game. Tay Banks, in all likelihood, will be getting the start for him. Cordell Flott still in the concussion protocol as a result of what happened in Philly when they accidentally clicked helmets with a player, and that put him in the protocol. And even though he appears to be walking around fluidly and was with the trainers outside in gear, but not practicing on Thursday, it's touch and go whether or not he will get clearance in time for Sunday's game. Now, that's a little more important than the other side because if you want to try to figure out who's going to start in place of Flott, it becomes a little sticky. See, veteran Art Green, who's been really good on special teams coverage, he didn't practice during the middle of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, because of a sore hamstring. We will see if the Giants are just hoping that a little bit of rest will allow him to rejuvenate and get in there on Sunday. Because if he cannot go, you're looking at either rookie Corey Black or Rico Payton. Now, Payton had a groin injury, and the Giants just activated his practice window the other day. In fact, he's only had 2 practices with the team. So it's either going to be Payton or Corey Black if Green and Flott are unable to go against San Fran. Now, Corey Black is an interesting case, though. 7th-round draft pick, one of the Giants' 2 final picks in the draft. He's a really good kid who was brought here primarily for special teams, but they also thought he might be able to compete for a reserve job on the defense. He was cut at the 53. The Jets picked him up. They put him on the practice squad. He wound up appearing in a couple of games only on special teams. But then the Giants were able to poach him off the Jets practice squad and signed him to their 53 before the Philadelphia game. He played 30 defensive snaps against the Eagles, did give up the long touchdown pass to Dotson. However, many observers do believe there should have been an offensive pass interference on that play. Be that as it may, Black did get 30 snaps of experience, and he may have to be called upon rather heavily in this game on Sunday. So hopefully that will make him the better for his wares. And the 49ers, who, by the way, also have injuries to their wide receiving core on the other side of that ledger. It will be interesting to see if they try to take advantage of that potential situation. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. The Giants also having Javon Holland limited at practice during the course of the middle of the week on a sore knee. Dane Belton had played last week against the Eagles, although the Giants gave more of the coverage responsibilities to the other safety, Tyler Nubin. But Holland, limited practice so far this week, the arrows pointing up for him. The other Giants starter who did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday was starting right tackle Jermaine Illuminor, nursing a sore pectoral. Now, if he can't go, we know that Marcus Bowe is now the next man up. He has become the Giants' third tackle, or the swing tackle, if you will. Had a sensational training camp and a terrific preseason. He has inserted himself into that number 3 spot ahead of the veteran James Hudson. So that's where the Giants stand going in to this game with the state of their injury affairs. I do want to mention a couple of significant items in terms of Giants statistics. We know Dart is 0-3 as a starting quarterback on the road, but 2-0 at home. I kind of mentioned that earlier in this short production because, after all, if he can keep that energy going in the stadium, well, maybe that home field advantage will actually become something for the Giants over the course of the rest of the season. Brian Burns has at least a sack in 7 of his 8 games this season. His 10 sacks is tied for the most in the NFL. He has been simply sensational, despite the fact that the Giants defense has underachieved and specifically allowed points on 11 of their past 14 drives over the course of the last 2 weeks. It has been a tough go for the Giants defensively. Okay, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers, because this is a team, if you haven't been paying attention, they are amazingly 5-3. They've done it with outstanding schematics, terrific coaching, and basically not shooting themselves in the foot. As we go into Friday's practice, and again, they're on the West Coast, so the Giants won't learn until much later on Friday about the status of the 49ers players. They've got 3 starting offensive players, and if you include their sub package and their nickel corner, 4 starting defensive players who are significantly hurt or are not expected to play in this game. We'll start with offense, where left guard Ben Bartch with an ankle has been limited all week. They're really not sure how he's going to be able to play on Sunday. We know that starting center Jake Brendel has a hamstring and has not practiced going into Friday at all. That will certainly be significant. Ricky Pearsall, starting wide receiver, injured knee, hasn't practiced, does not appear like he will be available on Sunday. Now remember, this is a team that also has to go without Brandon Ayuk because of ACL and MCL injuries. That was suffered last year. He still hasn't returned to the lineup. So that becomes a significant issue for the Niners passing game. We do think, at least as it stands going into Friday's practice, that it looks like Mac Jones is going to be their starting quarterback. We'll talk about him more in a minute, but just to update you on Brock Purdy, he's had a toe injury. He's missed more than a month of the season. He has been limited in practice this week, But there is also that bugaboo in the 49ers' mind about the Giants Stadium turf. Now remember, the artificial surface at MetLife Stadium was replaced in 2023. It was back in 2020, before the replacement, when the Niners came to Giant Stadium to play the Giants and suffered 4 injuries to their starters. And Kyle Shanahan and the Niners were very vocal after the game about what they did not like about the turf. That may be sitting in the back of their minds as they approach this game, even though the field was replaced in 2023. So, given that Purdy has a toe injury, they may not want to play him this Sunday. They say he's getting closer and closer to returning, but they may decide to hold him out for one more week. Now, why do I even mention that this is even an issue? Well, again, Jones is held up. He has started 6 of the first 8 games for the Niners. Again, they are 5-3. He is 4-2 as their starting quarterback. And he's third in the NFL in passing yards per game at over 265. But he got off to a really great start. He's had under 200 passing yards in each of his last 2 games. He was over 275 in each of his first 4. So Jones has been in a bit of a slump. There are even media out there in San Francisco who were talking as if, well, this 49ers team shouldn't even have a winning record because they haven't been all that impressive. Well, it's not about style points in the NFL. It's about wins and losses. And they have done enough to go 5-3 so far, which is more than you can say for the 2-6 Giants. Now, in terms of what's going on with that passing game, well, we mentioned to you that Ayuk is out. Well, it also has to be mentioned that George Kittle, because of a hamstring injury, has missed more than half of the season. He is back. He is in full practice. He's got an oblique thing, too, going on, but Kittle did return to the lineup a couple weeks back, or last week, actually, for the season. Only 8 catches for 68 yards and 2 scores with a long of 17. So it's not an impressive stat line. But certainly the Giants do not want him to break out statistically this week in his second straight week back. They have used Tunges with 26 catches with 4 touchdowns, but only averaging less than 9 yards a catch. He has been the primary go-to guy at tight end in Kittle's absence. They have also used Kendrick Bourne as their leading wide receiver weapon. Bourne on the season, 28 catches, over 15 yards a grab, no touchdowns, and 4 drops. And I'll give you a really, really strange number. And yes, it's taken this long, over half of the show, to get to Christian McCaffrey, who's at 490 yards rushing at only 3.5 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. Receiving, he has been the go-to guy, right? He's got 56 catches on the season, second in the NFL, 8th with 559 receiving yards. That's 10 yards a pop and 3 touchdowns. But he's got 6 drops, which is an enormously high number for him, and quite honestly for anybody with the number of catches that he's had. That's an inordinate amount. I don't know if the Giants can, be so lucky on Sunday as to have McCaffrey have butterfingers and not hold on to some passes, but that would certainly help. In any event, defensively speaking, as we turn it to the other side for the 49ers, defensive tackle Jordan Elliott's a starter. He's nursing an ankle. Has been limited at practice this week. Looks like also on defense, Upton Stout, their nickelback, has been limited to practice with a sore shoulder. We know that D. Winters, their starting weak side linebacker, is returned to limited practice on Thursday. He's got a bad knee. Now, why is that important? Well, let's see. This defense does not have Fred Warner because of a broken ankle. He's out for the season, and it makes a huge difference to them. By the way, in the last 5 games the Niners have played, they've given up a minimum of 23 points in 4 of their last 5 games. So they've had a lot of trouble stopping people. They did just acquire from New England Keon White, who they believe is going to help their pass rush. He's only got 1 sack in his last 20 games, but he's got length and quickness. They're looking for him to give them a little energy. They only have 5 sacks over their past 6 games combined. And last week in the loss to Houston, 26-15, they only had 2 quarterback hits. And in fact, the 49ers on the season have only 9 sacks. That is next to last in the National Football League. Their blitz percentage is only 18% on passing downs. That is 28th in the NFL, so they're not taking many risks. They just can't afford to, and as a result, they're not getting much heat. Their pressure number, which is a combined hurries, knockdowns, and sacks, is only 31 for the season. That is dead last in the NFL. So they're not getting much heat on the quarterback. Their passing game is somewhat limited because of injuries, and their running game has not been what it should be, specifically because their offensive line has not been given McCaffrey a whole lot of room to operate. Nick Bosa out with an ACL for the season. That has been a huge factor. Let's not kid ourselves. One of the best pass rushers in the league. Sam Okwowandu, nursing an ankle injury. He's their starting right defensive end. That's a problem. Although he was limited at practice on Thursday, they badly would like to see him give them some snaps. But this is what we're talking about with the 49ers, a badly banged up team. All right, let's quickly get to our 3 key matchups to watch. We're going to go with George Kittle, the starting tight end, who is back in the lineup now. We're going to assume the Giants stick with Tyler Nubin as the primary coverage responsibility guy on the tight end. The Giants are tied for 20th this season in terms of their coverage against tight ends, allowing 44 receptions for almost 390 yards and 4 touchdowns. That has been somewhat of a problem, shall we say, even though their corners are hurt. They have not done very well covering tight ends. So we'll go with Kittle against Nubin. Obviously, anytime you play San Francisco, you're talking about Christian McCaffrey. I gave you his numbers just a short time ago. We'll mention the McCaffrey, Bobby Okereke combination. Okereke's leading the Giants still with 68 tackles, but does not have a single tackle for a loss yet this season. Now, why do I bring that up? Because San Francisco has had 25 negative running plays this year, not including kneel downs. That is 12% of their rushing plays, which is the 4th highest percentage of negative runs in the NFL. Of 32 teams, 4th highest percentage of negative runs. 25 negative runs by San Francisco. Giants, by comparison, only have 15 negative runs. So that gives you a little bit of context. Let's see if the Giants can add to that number for San Francisco this week. And Bobby Okereke, as the middle linebacker, is a guy who I would really love to see have a major league impactful game in this one. And if that's going to happen, well, you've heard a little bit about Dexter Lawrence, the Giants' starting nose tackle / defensive tackle, in the news this week. Let's see what kind of game that he has against what is probably going to be backup center Matt Hennessy. Now, we said that Brendel is nursing a hamstring and had not practiced in Wednesday or Thursday sessions. Hennessy, a 5th-year pro, now in his 3rd organization, been with the Falcons, been with the Eagles, with San Francisco now this year, was a starter for Atlanta back in 2021. But other than that one season, he has been a backup and has had very little starting experience. If Hennessy is forced to get the call as the starting center on Sunday, it will be very interesting to see what the Giants do to try to take advantage of that matchup. Will they send blitzers into the A gap to further cause problems for the interior of the 49ers line? Or will they simply rely on the fact that Dexter Lawrence is going to be in there and Bobby Okereke will be right behind him in the middle linebacker spot? Because the one thing you don't want to do is let Christian McCaffrey explode and have a big game. He did have 129 yards and 2 touchdowns earlier this season in a game against Atlanta. In fact, that was just 2 weeks ago. That was a typical McCaffrey type game. But for a lot of the season, he hasn't quite been himself because this offensive line has not been the same in San Francisco. Well, that'll wrap it up for this edition. We'll be back once again on Monday morning with our New York Giants game balls and gassers on offense, defense, and special teams following Sunday's home game against the San Francisco 49ers. You can always catch us here on the Big Blue Breakdown on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and Media Network. And don't forget, we'll be back again on Wednesday with a live edition of the program where we take your chats, your phone calls, and your video calls. That starts Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we'll be not only looking at the state of the Giants, but looking ahead at their game next weekend on the road against the Chicago Bears. Until next time, I'm Paul Dottino. We will see you then.